William Bonner and Lila Rajiva's 2009 book, Mobs, Messiahs, and Markets, Surviving the Public Spectacle in Finance and Politics, promises to be as enlightening as it is entertaining. The book kicks off with a bang, introducing us to the concept of world improvers, those well-intentioned, or not so well-intentioned, individuals who believe they have the solution to all of humanity's problems. But as Bonner and Rajiva point out, these reformers often end up causing more harm than good. Take Armin Meiwes, for example, the so-called Cannibal of Rotenburg. He thought he had a solution to overpopulation and poverty, cannibalism. Yes, you heard that right. He believed that by eating people, he could solve the world's problems. Needless to say, his plan didn't quite work out as he envisioned. And then there's Saddam Hussein, who claimed he was building a better Iraq. But as we all know, his regime was marked by brutality and oppression. The authors argue that these world improvers, whether they're dictators or misguided activists, often share a common trait. They believe their own hype. Their delusions become self-reinforcing, much like a stock market bubble, where the higher the prices go, the more people believe they make sense. The book also delves into the dangers of single-mindedness, particularly in the context of politics and war. Take Alexander the Great, for instance. He was driven by a vision of conquering the world in the name of liberty, a concept that seems eerily similar to the rhetoric used by modern-day leaders. But as the authors point out, Alexander's quest for glory ultimately led to his downfall. He died at the young age of 33, leaving behind a legacy of destruction and chaos. The authors draw a comparison between Alexander and George W. Bush, suggesting that both leaders were driven by a similar sense of messianic purpose. But while Alexander's ambitions were limited by the technology and geography of his time, Bush's ambitions were amplified by modern technology and global politics. The result? Wars in Afghanistan and Iraq that have had far-reaching and often devastating consequences. The media, of course, plays a crucial role in shaping public perception and fueling the public spectacle. The authors highlight the sensationalism and bias that often characterize media coverage, using the example of the witch trials in early modern Europe. They argue that the media of the time, in the form of pamphlets and broadsheets, played a key role in spreading fear and hysteria, much like the modern media does today. Bonner and Rajiva also criticize the tendency of the media to focus on sensational stories, often at the expense of more important issues. For instance, they point out that while child abuse is a serious problem, the media's obsession with salacious details and moral panic can distort the public's understanding of the issue. They argue that the media's focus on sex, violence, and scandal can distract from more pressing concerns, such as economic inequality, environmental degradation, and political corruption. The book also challenges the notion of democracy as a panacea for all societal ills. The authors argue that democracy, while a noble ideal, is often corrupted by the influence of money, power, and propaganda. They cite the example of Hong Kong, which experienced remarkable economic growth and prosperity under a non-democratic government. They contrast this with the experience of many democracies, which have struggled with corruption, inefficiency, and economic stagnation. The authors also criticize the tendency of democratic governments to engage in costly and often misguided interventions in other countries. They argue that America's attempts to export democracy to Iraq and Afghanistan have been marked by hubris, ignorance, and a disregard for the complexities of local cultures and politics. In a world dominated by logic and reason, the authors argue that intuition and instinct often play a more significant role in shaping human behavior than we realize. They cite the example of the London terrorist bombings of 2005, which triggered a wave of panic and fear that was disproportionate to the actual threat. They suggest that people are often guided by gut feelings and emotional responses rather than by rational analysis. The authors also highlight the importance of social intelligence, arguing that our ability to read people and situations is often more valuable than our ability to process information and make logical decisions. They suggest that women, in particular, tend to have a keener sense of social intelligence, which can be a valuable asset in navigating the complexities of modern life. The book concludes with a warning about the dangers of overconfidence, particularly in the context of finance and economics. The authors argue that the financial industry is rife with overconfident individuals who believe they can outsmart the market and predict the future. But as history has shown, these individuals are often wrong, and their hubris can lead to disastrous consequences. They cite the example of Alan Greenspan, the former chairman of the Federal Reserve, who was widely praised for his handling of the economy during his tenure. But as the authors point out, Greenspan's policies helped fuel the housing bubble and the subsequent financial crisis. They argue that his overconfidence and belief in the power of the market blinded him to the risks that were building beneath the surface. Ultimately, Mobs, Messiahs, and Markets is a fascinating exploration of the forces that shape our world, from the well-intentioned but misguided world improvers to the powerful forces of the media and the market. It's a reminder that in a world dominated by public spectacles, it's important to stay grounded, question assumptions, and trust your instincts. This has been a BrightLearn video from BrightLearn.ai on the book Mobs, Messiahs, and Markets: Surviving the Public Spectacle in Finance and Politics by William Bonner and Lila Rajiva. Visit BrightLearn.ai for more fascinating videos like this one, and visit naturalnews.com for full editorial coverage and breaking news on critical stories that keep you informed and aware of what's really going on.